All right, today we've got a real clash of the titans. We're putting two of the biggest names in sociology head-to-head, Karl Marx and Max Weber. You see, these guys both tried to figure out what makes the modern world tick, and believe me, their clashing ideas are still shaping how we see absolutely everything around us.
So let's just boil it down to the one question that really gets to the heart of their disagreement. What is the main force driving our society? Is it all about money? The economy, who owns the factories, who controls the capital? Or is it about our beliefs, our culture, the ideas floating around in our heads?
In one corner, you've got Karl Marx, the ultimate materialist. For him, it's simple. The economy is the engine of history, period. But in the other corner, you have Max Weber, who kind of looked at that and said, hold on, it's not that simple. He argued that, yeah, money's a big deal, but you just can't ignore the raw power of culture and ideas.
Okay, so to really get this, let's kick things off with our first major point of conflict. What is it that actually pushes history forward?
Marx's answer is this huge concept called historical materialism. The best way to picture it is to think of society as a building. The foundation, what he called the base, is the economy. It's how we make stuff, the tools we use, and who owns what. And then everything else, and I mean everything, our laws, politics, art, even our morals, that's the superstructure. It's all built right on top of and is totally shaped by that economic base.
So for Marx, history isn't just a bunch of random events. Nope. It's a predictable, almost scientific progression through different economic stages. Each system, or mode of production, think feudalism, then capitalism, carries the seeds of its own destruction. Each one inevitably collapses and gives way to the next. And for him, the final stop on this train? A classless, communist utopia.
And this quote right here, it just cuts straight to the chase. The real engine of history for Marx isn't kings or big ideas. It's the constant, grinding conflict between economic classes, the haves and the have-nots. That struggle is what propels humanity's story from one chapter to the next.
But this is exactly where Weber steps in and says, not so fast. He saw the world as way more complicated. He never said economics didn't matter, of course it does, but he argued it was just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. If you really want to understand society, you have to look at how culture, religion, and politics all mix and influence each other.
And Weber had this amazing analogy to explain it. He said that economic interests are like a powerful train, a locomotive pushing society forward, just like Marx thought. But, he said, ideas are the switchmen. They're the ones who decide which track that powerful train is going to run on. So an idea, a belief, could literally steer the entire course of economic history.
So naturally, this leads us right into their next big disagreement. What is capitalism really? Where did it come from? And what's its defining feature?
And their definitions couldn't be more different. For Marx, capitalism is at its core a system of exploitation and unending class conflict. It's baked right in. Weber, though, he saw it differently. For him, capitalism is defined by something much more subtle, a very specific, rational way of thinking and a totally unique cultural attitude about work. For Marx, the whole system runs on this one key mechanism, surplus value. Think about it like this. A worker goes to a factory and produces, say, $100 worth of goods in a day, but they only get paid maybe $20 in wages. That leftover $80, that's the surplus value, and the owner just takes it as profit. For Marx, that's not just business, that is exploitation, plain and simple.
Weber saw this same system, this endless, rational pursuit of profit, and asked a totally different question. Why? Why did this obsessive need to accumulate wealth pop up in Western Europe and not really anywhere else? His answer was a total game changer. He said the spark, it came from religion. And this brings us to his most famous argument, the Protestant ethic. It's like a causal chain reaction. First, you get this intense religious anxiety. See, Calvinists believed in predestination, that it was already decided if you were going to heaven or hell. Imagine not knowing. So people were desperate for a sign, any sign, that they were one of the chosen elect. They found that sign in disciplined, tireless work. Success in your job was seen as a sign of God's favor. But, and this is the crucial part, their religious values meant they couldn't just go spend that money on fancy things. So what did they do with it? They reinvested it. And just like that, a set of religious beliefs accidentally created the perfect psychological mindset for capitalism to thrive. Okay, so they saw history differently, they saw capitalism differently. It's probably no surprise they had completely different ways of mapping out society, too. Marx's map is brutally simple. It's all about economics. Society is split into two massive opposing classes. You have the bourgeoisie, the people who own the factories, the land, the capital, all the stuff you need to make things. And then you have the proletariat, the massive class of workers who own nothing but their ability to work. And for Marx, the relationship between them is always going to be one of conflict.
Weber, as usual, adds more layers. He saw our place in society as having three dimensions. First, there's class, your economic standing. But there's also status, which is about social honor and prestige. A poor but highly respected scientist might have high status. And then there's party, which is all about political power and your ability to influence the system.
This table really lays it out clearly. For Marx, your entire identity in society boils down to one thing. Do you own the means of production, or do you work for the people who do? But for Weber, it's this complex dance between your economic position, your social prestige, and your political pull. You could easily be rich but have no status, or have a lot of political power but not be wealthy. It's a much more nuanced picture.
So let's bring it all home and look at their legacies. Given their analyses, what did these two giants think was going to happen to the modern world? What was the future they saw?
And just like everything else, their predictions were polar opposites. Marx was all about the drama. He saw a massive, violent revolution on the horizon. Capitalism, he believed, would eventually tear itself apart from its own internal problems, leading to a huge workers' uprising. Weber, on the other hand, he predicted something much quieter, almost creepier, the slow, steady march of rationalization and bureaucracy taking over every single aspect of our lives.
And that leads to Weber's most haunting idea, the iron cage. He was not optimistic about the future. He was genuinely afraid that this relentless push for efficiency and order would trap us all in a cage of rules, regulations, and impersonal systems, a world so perfectly organized that it would slowly squeeze out all the passion, creativity, and individuality that makes us human.
Which, of course, leaves us with the big question for today. Looking around at our world, who do you think got it more right? Are our lives mostly defined by the class struggle that Marx obsessed over? Or does it feel more like we're all stuck inside Weber's iron cage, just another number in a massive, rationalized system? That's a question that really cuts to the heart of what it feels like to be alive right now.